Hey, what's up, guys? This is 5 reasons that high school studs do not do well in college. Reason number 1, injury. Most obvious one, guys, you get to college, it is just a workload. College wrestling is one of the toughest things that anybody can put themselves through, and there is not a single person that has gone through a whole 4 or 5 years, which most guys do, without an injury. So that's the number 1 reason that I would say guys do not succeed at the highest level of college that are really, really good in high school is injury. Number 2, addiction. And this can be anything. This can be porn, drugs, alcohol, women. All of it goes in there. Partying. I've seen so many guys bust because they just could not stop, or they wouldn't stop. You know, maybe they were really, really high level at their state or at the high school level. But when you get to college, these are men. These are 21, 22, 23. Sometimes guys, they do mission trips. They come back. They redshirt, a couple years. I mean, you're talking about 25-year-old guys. Guys go out of college and end up winning world and Olympic titles. So you have to have all your bases in line. And if any one of these things are out of whack, if you're partying on Friday nights before duels, if you're drinking, if you've got, a sex or porn addiction, like these things are tough and they're debilitating, and it is very hard to compete at a high level without everything focused in. And I've seen it time and time again. Guys can just not compete at the highest levels with any one of these things, let alone some guys have all of them. Number 3, burnout. So this is one of the hardest ones to determine, because this really does happen at a young level, or at a young age. But there is just only so much time you can be on top, and only so much time you can grind in your life before it starts to take hold. So one of the things I tell people is don't cut weight until you get older. Do not cut weight as a youth. I don't think you should start cutting weight till you can drive, honestly. If you're not good enough to win at the weight class that you're sitting at right now walking around, sorry, I don't think that's a good thing. But burnout happens all the time with guys that cut weight. I tell parents all the time, if you want your kid to not be successful in high school and college, make them cut weight early, because they won't even make it. So burnout is huge. Some guys, their parents or their coaches, there's just so much pressure. It's just so hard. Or they get into some of the other things that I was talking about, the drugs, the alcohol, the party, and the sex, whatever it is. And they just burn out. They're just done. They don't want to compete. School gets in the way. Grades get in the way. Life happens, and wrestling just becomes less of a priority. They're not as motivated. They're not as determined. And the biggest thing that happens with burnout, and all you have to find out is the risk worth the reward? Like, if you can go back and say, was it worth it to me? Is it worth it to me if all this goes right? And is it worth it to me if all of it goes wrong? And, if the answer is no, then you're starting to see some burnout. So burnout is another one that I see get a lot of guys. Number 4, you cut too much weight. And we kind of talked about it. Some guys just have this desire to be the biggest guy, like above all else. And they cut so much weight. And I think this kind of goes into 3, but they just burn out and they just cannot do it, or their body does not, even if it's not burnout, if you're cutting so much weight, you can't compete at a high level. You have 2 hours max before you're competing. So you cut 20 pounds in, 2 or 3 days to get down. You're doing that over the course of a season, and you're not going to compete well. Your body is just not going to function. It's not going to do what it's supposed to do. And plus you're thinking about like, okay, how much time is spent at practice being at a diminished level? You shouldn't cut too much weight, especially in wrestling. Fighting, it's a little different because you have, a whole day to recover for one fight. Wrestling, you've got a whole 2 hours, sometimes 1 hour to recover for multiple matches. So you need to be, and then you got to go back and do it again the next week. So you need to be at your top level, and you need to be replenished. And cutting too much weight will just completely derail a good wrestler. That's why you see a lot of guys that go up in weight end up doing way better. It's not just because they're faster, which is part of it. It's not because they can, they're mentally feeling better. They just physically, their body is doing what it's telling them to do because they're not depleting themselves. And then number 5, you're just unable to deal with the losses. You think about being a high school kid that was maybe a Fargo champ, maybe a Super 32 champ, maybe a state champ. I don't know what level it is. And then he's been competing at a varsity level, state. I mean, it just depends on what state you're in and how well you did, but at a very high level for 4 years. And you get to the college ranks And that will not be the case. It does not matter who you are. There are Olympic champions, there are national champions that get in and they get their asses whooped by the backups. It just happens because it's a different learning curve. It's much bigger than any other learning curve you're going to get into as an athlete. So guys will get there and they'll think, oh, I'm the man. And they learn real quick, you are not the man. You're not even, under the man. Like you're 3D, you're 3 levels deep. And so that is a huge thing that guys sometimes just don't know how to overcome because they haven't practiced it. So for those guys, keep your head up, keep moving forward, keep walking down and just saying, hey, listen, I'm going to be as good as I want to be in this sport. And, I'm going to give it all I got. But if you fall into any of these 5 categories, just assess it. Be honest with it. Be open about it. Bring it to your coaches. Bring it to your teammates. And just say, hey, I'm struggling in one or multiple of these areas. And, I don't know how to do well because I truly do believe you can be successful at wrestling if you put your mind to it and if you address, these things. But these are my top 5 reasons why high school studs don't do well in college. Thanks, guys. Hope you like and subscribe.